Hey, hello everybody. God bless you all. Peace of Christ to you all. I've already done this once, but sadly, the first time I did it, um, I lost slight control a couple of times, and said things that if I leave that first one, um, unfortunately, certain people will use the full force of their law, and I could spend up to 20 years. Um, so I've decided to redo it in the hope that I can keep certainly a bit more better control and still get the same message across. Um, so yes, as you can see from the title, it is to do with the child grooming gangs. Now, this has been an ongoing problem within the UK now, at least since around 1995, somewhere around there, is when this problem first arose. I remember it a long, long time ago anyway. And there were two social workers who were trying to highlight the problem of it in Rotherham. And basically they got shut down, lost their jobs, and yeah, basically told not to be so silly and to go away, really, even though they had bags of evidence back then. Um, it's now basically so widespread. Even in the House of Commons, they're admitting, 250,000 minimum girls. I believe the number could be much higher. We also know that it's no more, sorry, not Rotherham, it was Rochdale, the first notice of it, as I say, by the two social workers. But it's not only Rochdale anymore either. They now recognise that Oldham, Telford, Rochdale, Bradford, Peterborough. I mean, you could list 20 to 30 towns and cities within the UK, I think, and you still wouldn't be getting close to anything like the problem in total. I mean, we've also got to remember that for the most of this, we have had two governments in charge over those years. There's been Labour in charge, of course, under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. And of course, Conservatives followed them. And then now we have Labour back in charge. But of course, you also have to remember the independent councils who run these towns, such as Oldham, Rochdale, Peterborough, Telford, Oldham, they have independent councils, and predominantly, especially in the north of England, the majority of those councils were Labour run. But as I say, although most of the councils where they started have been Labour run, there's still a problem now within Conservative run councils as well. And of course, we did have the Conservatives in charge for quite a long time, and they, just like the Labour, have done absolutely nothing about this problem. Proving, of course, conclusively that obviously the government is fully involved and fully explicit within these heinous crimes. Or they wouldn't have been allowed to continue so long. Just looking at the evidences alone, the majority of times it's been the girls who have been arrested. It's been the girls who have been told that they are to blame, even though occasionally some of them are only 9, 10 and 11 years old. How you can blame a girl when it's a 40-year-old man that's raping her and say that it's her fault. Yeah, exactly. You've got to be definitely, you're not upholding the UK law in any way, shape, or form. Um, there's also been occasions where the fathers have tried to intervene and retrieve their daughters from houses where they are systematically being raped by groups of men. The police have shown up and they've arrested the fathers. We've had deaths of some of these girls, again, all fully known about, again, no arrests. Jodie Sheehan, um, 2003 to 2005, roughly 2006. Another lady who was mass groomed and passed around. She gave birth to a baby. So there was full DNA. She was complying with the police. She did all their videos. She gave all the evidences. The case was dropped before it went to trial, and there was no excuse given by the police. Only that the man had got a big, expensive lawyer, and they didn't think that it was worth continuing with the case. I wonder if that lawyer's name was the head of public prosecutions from 2008 to 2013. And of course, we then have that between 2008 and 2013. We have the son of a toolmaker as head of the CPS. Now, this, don't forget, is a gentleman who managed to lock people up for waving placards and doing various other things within weeks for years. And yet, he had 5 years to stop the child grooming gangs. And instead of stopping them, they grew. They grew in size, they grew in number, and they grew from town to town to town to town. And in fact, he also was allowed Jimmy Savile to walk free without prosecution through lack of evidence. So it's hardly surprising he could stop a child grooming gang, really, is it? And as I say, predominantly throughout this time, most of the councils in the north were Labour run. Andy Burnham is one name that springs to mind. Liam Treadswell, or Liam something like that as well, is another name that springs to mind. Labour run councils who instigated inquiries, but they were all sort of internal inquiries, all with their own people. And, well, basically, they ended up with mistake after mistake after mistake. Angela Rayner and also Lisa Phillips, is it, or Jess Phillips? The two of the current women within two-tier Keir Starmer's cabinet were also implicit and involved in some of these inquiries. Now, of course, one of the inquiries, when it came forward, they were told you must include schools because they were going to inquire. I mean, it was only one of, I can't remember whether it's Oldham or the Rochdale inquiry, but it was certainly one of those two, inquiries. And they were going to just look into everything, the whole aspect of the whole town, everything, all the involvement of the people and the children and everything like that, and then draw their, conclusions on the inquiry. And of course, they were told that, of course, definitely the one area that they should be looking at is schools. And of course, if you're doing an inquiry into child molestation grooming gangs, you don't need to be the top rocket scientist in the world to understand and know you must include schools. Because where do children spend most of their time? At a school. And so they were actually told this, they were actually said, well, you've got to include your inquiry looking also at schools, because we know for a fact that some of these children have been snatched from right outside their schools, driven off in cars and mass groomed grapes. And before the inquiry began, they decided to bring a list out of all the areas that they were not going to be bothering to look at. And right at the top of their list of the places they were not going to be looking at was schools. Angela Rayner, Jess Phillips, or whatever her name is, involved in this, decided not to look into schools at child mass grape grooming gangs in a town. As I say, Keir Starmer, head of Director of Public Prosecutions, 2008 to 2013. Keir, can you answer one question, please? Or one of your minions either answer it. How many people did you actually physically bring to prosecution from these areas within the Pakistani Muslim groups to prosecution in your 5 years? Just give a rough figure, 10, 20, 50, 100. I mean, I would assume, with the size of the problem, that 1 to 2,000 would not be, uh, um, um, uh, an unusual number. And certainly as high as even 4 or 5,000 would be the sort of numbers I would be expecting for somebody who shouts and screams at the top of their voice how clear and good they are on cracking down on criminals. So I don't expect an answer, of course. I mean, I've tried to find out, but it's not an easy thing to find out over the internet. I mean, if anyone out there has got the figures, how many prosecutions there were in the UK between 2008 and 2013 of Pakistani grooming gangs, please, I'd like to see them. I don't think they'll be very high, as I say. I certainly don't think they'll be as high as 3, 4, 5,000 like they should be. I think they'll be in the two-digit numbers, definitely, rather than the three-digit numbers, and definitely not the four-digit numbers like they should be. But anyway, Raja, a man called Raja. He was an Oldham councillor. He had a lot to do in the city. He grew up in the city. He was born in the city. He's a Muslim. He's got a mosque there, very good mosque. And he is also likewise very disgusted with what's happening what was happening within his town, and the people that were causing these offences. Very disgusted. So it's not just, white British Christians who this crime is affecting and who this crime is disgusting. It's also the indigenous Muslims who are good Muslims, who believe in following the laws correctly and being good to everybody, who are also thoroughly disgusted at the way these Muslims are treating young British white children. But not only, as I say, those people that are doing it, also the people that are allowing them to do it. Because let's not forget, this problem has been going on, as I say, since 1990. Around sometime, I don't remember when exactly 1990 it started. As I say, the first cases in Rochdale came about, whether it was early 90, mid 90, or late 90s, but by the by, that's all immaterial. It's still, 30 to 40 years this has been going on now. And in that 30, 40 years, it's grown. it's grown bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's in nearly every single net town and city in the UK now. And um, the few people that have been caught and charged and arrested are, most of them are soon to be walking out of prison, free men. And it's still a crime that's being perpetrated. The people who perpetrated on Jodie Sheehan, as I said, that they didn't even get charged with it. The charges got dropped before they even got to court because they had a very good lawyer, apparently. What would that matter in British justice, people? You've got DNA evidence against you, you've got witness evidence against you, and you've got a baby that was physically born against you. What good lawyer could get you off of that charge of rape? You know, sorry, but that to me is not a good lawyer getting you off. That to me is huge, large sums of money being paid to the right people to get you off. In other words, they're called backhanders. Um, I mean, as I say, I've already mentioned Angela Rayner, I've mentioned Jess Phillips. They were all implicit in covering up these scandals before Labour came into power, of course. Um, More than likely while Conservative was still in power. Either way, as I say, they're all implicit in it. Conservative, Labour, the whole lot. Lords, there are people within the House of Lords who are implicit in it and who know about it. Lord Ali, more than likely. Lord Hamid, more than likely. I mean, this is not something that is new to this country. If you know Islam and you understand Islam, this is something that Islam has done for 1400 years. It's called genocide by rape. Elon Musk pointed it out the other day on his X account. And I think that was against Jess Phillips as well. And he was quite right because Jess Phillips was involved in the inquiries years and years ago. She could have, and she never did stop it. And so, and when he said Jess Phillips is implicit in the genocide of rape, he was quite correct because that's exactly what it is. And it's exactly what they did in Pakistan. They did exactly the same thing in their own country in Pakistan. So all those people I see tweeting saying, "Oh, they'd never do it in Pakistan," don't believe. No, they would. And they did against the Bangladeshi people, against mainly the Hindu Bangladeshis. They raped them into genocide. And it's actually a thing in Islam. There are two types of genocide in Islam. There's the October the 7th attack by Hamas in Israel. That's one type of genocide. And then there's also the genocide by grape. They literally grape all of your children until they're so, destroyed, or all of them are giving birth to Muslims. Either way, it's genocide by grape. And we move now to the part where, as I say, obviously, high up people are implicit in this. The Manchester airport attack, clearly, the only thing they're worried about there is catching the person who leaked the full tape. They weren't interested in arresting the perpetrators who did physically beat the policemen up badly. They were only interested in the one who leaked the full tape. Um, there was also the incident at the school, which Tommy Robinson has been jailed for. And I know millions of people have seen that video now. And so, again, you can draw your own conclusions on that. I know exactly, again, exactly like Manchester Airport, exactly the same incident, except for whereas Manchester Airport, someone managed to grow a pair and leak the full tape. At the school, it didn't happen. They kept it all hidden up. No one knew about it until, of course, Tommy came along and he exposed it, and ended up getting 2 years in prison for it. Likewise, he's already said as well, he's got plenty of evidence and proof to sort of, against certain people over this child grooming scandal. And so I expect more to come out of this when he's released, if they ever release him, because, of course, they've got him solitary confinement now, which is totally illegal. He's a civil prisoner, not a criminal prisoner. He shouldn't have got 18 years in the first place, and he certainly shouldn't be in solitary confinement for all that time. And the one people who are keeping him in solitary confinement, again, is the government. It's the government who have forced the prison to keep him in solitary confinement, and they're trying to lay even more terrorism charges upon him as well to keep him in even longer. They know, that he has things to reveal about them, and, well, quite frankly, that they're totally scared, which is understandable because they have got something to hide. You can tell this by their reaction so far since they've been in power. Um, I believe the Conservatives and Reform and most of the people in government also are implicit and know what's going on, but without a doubt, our current government are the ones who are the most to blame. I believe they are the ones who have covered it up the most out of anybody. And that is what they're scared of. That is what they are scared of. That's why they're coming out with this far right. It's why they're coming out with draconian sentences against anyone who speaks out about it. Because they want to keep it. They just want to keep it all totally hush hush and totally quiet. It's why they went totally loopy on Southport, not over the killer, over the people who waved placards and started talking about it. He's a Muslim. Because they just, as I say, it's not so much the cases like Southport that they're worried about people talking about. It's cases like the child grooming gangs, Rochdale, Oldham, Bristol, Peterborough. Those is what they're worried about. Because, as I say, this has now gone on for nearly 40 years. Their estimate is 250,000 children. I reckon it would be closer to 500,000 children. Um, and they are implicit. They are definitely implicit, not only in fathers getting arrested when they try to rescue the children, but also in the children getting arrested and blamed, even though, of course, under UK law, they are quite clearly not to blame. They're also implicit in, obviously, the people getting lighter sentences than what they would normally get, and then also only serving a short time of those sentences from what they would normally serve. And again, also, they're implicit in the ones who walk away without any charge whatsoever. As like I say, Jodie Sheeran, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of those people. Jodie Sheeran or Jodie Sheehan. I really don't want to say the name incorrectly, but anyway, you know, and they are implicit in that. The Labour government, especially Angela Rayner, as I say, name has already come forward. Jess Phillips' name has already come forward. And isn't it surprising? These are certain people who have already spoken out and said, anyone talking it should be quiet for the sake of diversity. Isn't that surprising? Because this is why it's all been covered up. It's all been covered up for the sake of diversity. Little tiny children who have never hurt anybody, who have never done any wrong to anybody, who should never, ever have been hurt by anyone, have had their lives totally and utterly destroyed by filthy grown men, and they have got away with it for the sake of diversity, because of the colour of their skin and because of the colour of the skin of the children. And the Labour government is at the top of the list of the cover-up. And Keir Starmer, our current leader, who was head of public prosecutions between 2008 and 2013, the height of when it was growing, I would say, the fastest. And between 2013 and 2025, a leader of the Labour government and now current Prime Minister is fully aware of what's gone on, what's been covered up, what's been hidden, and he's also, fully implicit in that cover up and hiding for the sake of diversity and for the sake of the illegal immigration and the legal immigration and the open borders and the boats crossing in by the thousands. I mean, I only heard just the other day he wants to let in another 2,000, 3,000 Pakistanis. And yes, I mean, this is why they are trying so hard. Islamophobia, free speech, and I mean, what is so crazy is that now other people in other worlds can also clearly see what is happening. Elon Musk, Gert Wilder, they can all clearly see in the UK huge problem, mainly Pakistani Muslim men, gang raping, mainly white British children, and getting away with it. They can all clearly see it. And yet, how often did you ever hear Keir Starmer talk about cracking down on the child grooming gangs? I mean, I'm trying to think now how often I've heard him mention, that he's going to go after the child grooming gangs. I don't think I've ever heard it. I don't think I once ever heard him say that he's going to do that, ever. He used the full force of his law to go and arrest people waving placards. One man just recently has got 7 years, again, for a social media post. So he's quite happy to go out and give 7 years to people posting things on social media. He's quite happy for people to get 3 and 4 years for posting things on social media and waving placards about. But at the same time, he's equally quite happy to sit back and do absolutely nothing about the Pakistani grooming gangs for the sake of diversity. Now, I can't remember what philosopher it was, Plato, Socrates, one of them. They said that the only thing that is needed for evil to flourish is for the good people to sit back and do nothing. And he's been proved right over the years. 80 odd years ago in Germany, the good people sat back and did nothing, and a lot of people ended up dying. There are many other instances, where I could name where the good people sat back and did nothing, and lots of people ended up dying, and lots of problems and lots of catastrophes. And the UK is now at that stage. the UK is now at the stage where if all the good people sit back and do nothing, and I'm not just talking about the British white people here, folks. Let's get this 100% correct. So far, the people who wish to cover this up, so far, the people who wish to make sure all of their mistakes and errors don't come out into the light, have been shouting and screaming racist and far right thug as loud as they possibly can. And it's all bullcrap. Why is it racist to talk about grown men hurting little children? Why is it far right to talk about grown men hurting little children? And if that's the case, fine. I'm racist, I'm far right, I don't care. Someone needs to stand up and protect these little children. Someone needs to stand up and stop this evil flourishing. Because if all the good people sit back and do nothing, the evil will flourish. And as I say, although this is mainly Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs against mainly British white girls, it's not all Pakistani Muslim gangs and all mainly white British girls. Some of the girls that have been raped are Asian. Some of the girls that have been raped are other different nationalities. And as I say, it's nothing to do with race. It's nothing to do with religion. It's nothing to do with far right. It's to do with right and wrong. Full stop. What's right? What's wrong? Full stop. What is right is little tiny children being allowed to grow up safely, free from harm, and without some filthy 40-year-old man jumping up and down on them and using them as a trampoline and then passing them to the next man. That's what's wrong. And what is also wrong is our leaders and our government and our police and our judiciary not doing anything about it because the person who's committing the crime is brown and the person having the crime committed against them is white. That is also wrong. Now, of course, there's also the other part of it in the fact that when these people who are allowing this to happen and have allowed it to happen for the past 40 years are now in charge of your country, that is also wrong. You know, these people shouldn't be in charge of a children's school. And yet they run the country which runs every single school in the country. So when there's an independent inquiry into child grooming gangs, they can step forward and say, okay, we'll have the inquiry, but we'll leave out all of the schools in the area so they don't get found out. And this is the other part where it's all wrong. Whenever there is an independent inquiry, the independent inquiry, which remember is supposed to be totally independent, is being run, led, and managed by the people who have been covering it up for the past 40 years. That's not an independent inquiry. Now, obviously, this cannot continue. This problem where mainly Pakistani Muslim men are going around and mainly mass raping British white children can't continue. I don't understand how the powers that be that have allowed it to continue this far don't understand that. At some point, you know, something is going to give. When you allow that to continue for so long, you know, at some point, something is going to go wrong. Something will. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I dread to think. I really do dread to think what is going to happen. I dread to think of all the good Muslims that live in this country, like Raja, and I know there are many more like Raja who are just as disgusted at what these filthy men are doing. Even though they're Muslims, they're still filthily disgusted by what they're doing. Um, and I feel, really anxious and sorry for people like that because I have a real big fear that, something will happen. And instead of the correct perpetrators and the correct criminals who are doing this getting hurt, and also the people who are helping to cover it up in the police, in the government, in the Lords, and in the judiciary, they're not going to be getting hurt. The people who are committing the crimes, they're not going to be the ones that are going to get hurt. It's going to be the innocent people who haven't done anything that will get hurt. I mean, I can't understand how, especially Keir, I'm talking directly to you now, Keir. I do not understand how you, who profess to be a man of such high morals, a man of such high standards, a man who claims to have worked most of his life in the justice departments and the judiciary in trying to make sure that everything is just and right, can sit back and knowingly and happily allow thousands and thousands and thousands of children to be great. Unless, of course, you don't care about children. Is that why? You don't really give a shit about kids. Is that why? But then, what about the parents, Kia? All the parents, the sisters and brothers, uncles, nephews, all as well impacted by this disgusting disease. Do you also not care about them, Kia? Is it really, your only concern, the Muslims and the mosques? Is that really your only concern, Kia? Because seriously, from your actions and from all your words and from allowing these Pakistani grooming gangs to spread like wildfire without lifting a finger against them, and also the Manchester airport attack and the Southport attackers, it's seriously, and your involvement with your um, possible boyfriend, Lord Ali, it seriously looks like, Keir, all you really do care about are Muslims. So much for diversity, eh, Keir? Is that your diversity, Keir? Really? Seriously, is it? Is that really your diversity? Muslims only. Why don't you go and live in Saudi Arabia? Why don't you go and live in Iran? Why don't you go and live in Iraq? I mean, those countries are already full up with Muslims, and they already have Sharia. If that's your wish, Keir, if that's really what you want and really love, take Angela with you, take Jess with you, and go and live in Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Iran or Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, I heard you say once before, if you don't like it, leave. Guess what, Keir? If you don't like it, leave. Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. 15 different countries you can pick from, Kia, that are Muslim, that you would be happy in. So, I just want to make sure everyone is fully aware. There has been a massive, massive cover up of this scandal for 40 years. And it has involved our governments. Not just one, all of them, but mainly one is at the top of the list. But all of them are implicit in it, in the cover up, but mainly Labour. Those are the ones who mainly run the councils in those areas. Those are the ones who obviously head of CPS and also are now in charge. The police, again, are involved in it at the top highest level. The judiciary involved in it at the top highest levels. And of course, this doesn't also just come down to power. You know, obviously, Labour were doing it mainly so that they could get the backing of the Muslim votes in all these towns, so that they could get into power eventually, like they did do. You know, there's no doubt about it. You know that if it hadn't have been for the Muslim vote, uh, Labour wouldn't have won. Certainly not by the majority that they did do. That's guaranteed. The only reason why they did do is, as I say, because of the Muslim vote. And the only reason why they did that through the Muslim vote is because Oldham, Rochdale, Peterborough, all the other northern towns, that they have hid and covered up this scandal for over 40 years. You've also, as I say, got the involvement of the police, high-ranking police officers and high-ranking judges. They haven't done it just for power. You can bet your life there have been a lot of huge backhanders paid to certain people. So certain people have earned lots and lots of money out of it. Certain people have got good high-paying jobs, such as prime ministers, and I don't know what that silly girl Angela Rayner does, and I certainly don't know what that other silly girl Jess Phillips does. But you know, the years that they spent covering this up obviously helped their career in their present roles. So all I can say is I hope each and every single one of you, especially you ladies, are happy and are pleased at the amount of blood money you are now receiving. I hope you enjoy that blood money, and I hope that blood money brings you plenty of peace, because you basically ended up getting all of that blood money at the hands of thousands and thousands and thousands of little children. Just think about that. Just think on that for a few seconds, will you? You managed to get your top jobs and your top dollar jobs because you sacrificed 500,000 little children. Wow. Wow. Enjoy your money. And the same for you policemen, and the same for you judges. Make sure you enjoy your blood money. Every single pound that you got was another tiny little child life being ruined. I hope you enjoy it. To the rest of the people out there, the rest of the good people out there, regardless of whether you're a Christian, regardless of whether you're a Muslim, regardless of whether you're a Buddhist or a Sikh or an atheist, or whatever your religion or non-religion, regardless of your colour, regardless of your race, regardless of your creed. If you're a good person, and I know there are many more good people out there than there are bad people. If you're a good person and you're in the UK, then there's gonna have to be a time when all us good people come together to stop this evil rot. Because if we don't, guess who are going to be the sufferers? It's not going to be the ones who are collecting all the blood money. It's not going to be the ones who are covering it all up. It's not going to be the ones who are perpetrating it. It's going to be all us good people who had no part in it whatsoever. We are going to be the ones who suffer if we don't stop it. I guarantee it's always the good ones who suffer, never the bad, if it's not stopped. The only thing that evil needs to flourish is for all the good people to sit back and do nothing. Good people, it's time to stand up. Good people, it's time to stand up and unite. Good people, it's time to stand up and join together and tell all these nasty, evil people, enough is enough. Stop hurting our children. Stop hurting us. Stop your greed. Enough is enough. God bless you all. Peace of Christ to you all. I don't know if anyone will actually even see this, but I just ask for the few that do see it. I mean, usually, 30 to 40. Some of my more popular ones have reached 150, but that's after years and years. So all I can ask people is that when you do look view this, even if it's just for the first 10 seconds, please press the like button. Although, of course, you're not going to hear that if you only listen to the first 10 seconds, because I've only just said that right at the end. For those of you who do watch this through to the end, press the like, please. Share it, repost it. That way, more people will like it. The more people that like it, the more people that share it, the more people that repost it, then the more that YouTube will push it. And of course, the more people will see it. God bless you all. Peace of Christ to you all. Save our children.